I want to share with you a story I heard from a friend of mine, a priest friend, in fact, who told me about his time in Mexico and a friend of his who was in the most extraordinary situation. This priest friend was riding on the subway around Mexico City to get from the main church to a mission chapel. And of course, he was wearing his cassock, and he was riding on the subway. And this man was sitting across from him, an old man who he noticed kept looking at him, not with malice, but with some sort of interest. And finally, the priest got up and went over and sat down next to him and introduced himself and said, "You know, I noticed you looking at me. Is there anything I can do for you? Are you a Catholic?" And the man said, "Well, I used to be a Catholic. In fact, I was a devout Catholic. I went to Mass several times a week. I prayed my rosary every day. And I renewed my consecration to the Blessed Mother every year. But I lost my faith, and I lost my faith because of the Blessed Mother." The priest, of course, was shocked, and he asked, "Well, how could that be possible?" And the man told him a story. He said, "Not only was I a devout Catholic, but I raised my son in the faith, and he too became a devout Catholic, and he too consecrated his life to Our Lady. And then one day I got a phone call," the man said, "that my son had committed suicide. And I rushed to his home and found that he was dead. He had jumped out of his apartment building and fallen many stories to his death." The priest had been listening intently and asked the old man, "Well, if I may be so bold as to ask, what year did this happen?" And the man told him, and he said, "In what barrio in Mexico City did this happen?" A barrio is a neighborhood. The old man told him, and the priest said, "Did this happen at the intersection of such and such street?" And the old man was shocked and turned to him and said, "Yes, actually, it did happen at the intersection of those two streets. How could you possibly know?" And the priest said, "Well, let me tell you the rest of the story. I was on my way from the mission chapel to make a home visit to a dying old woman. I had all of my priestly sacramentals in a briefcase with me. And as I turned the corner, I heard people screaming and gathering around a particular spot on the sidewalk. And so I walked over, and there was a young man who had clearly jumped from the apartment building and fallen a very long way. But he was not dead. In fact, not only was he alive, he was conscious. And when he saw me in my cassock with my Roman collar on, he asked for confession. And the priest heard his confession, and because he had his belongings with him, was also able to give him last rites. And then the young man died. And so you see, the priest said, Our Lady really does keep her promises. She saved your son. Hope you have a happy feast of the Immaculate Conception.